everyone. Today I wanted to make a video to talk about why you might want to reconsider asking for other people's input and advice on your situations, your relationships, your decisions, your choices, etc. You'll notice I'm now dark brunette. In my previous video I was blonde. I'm probably going to be dark from now on, maybe forever, who knows. I'm quite enjoying being a brunette again. I'm also wearing my hair naturally, my hair's naturally curly and I'm wearing it curly. It's a bit of a mess. It's really hot today and my hair is a bit fluffy, so I've wet it down with a spray bottle that had water in it. So sorry if I'm looking a bit messy. It's just what we're going with today. I believe in being natural at all times. So I'm just practicing that today. So if you're wondering about the way I look today, that's the reason behind it. So on to the topic that I've chosen for today. This is something that's been on my mind a lot. The idea of who to talk to about your situation when you want advice, and if you should even talk to anyone at all. And the choice, which I think a lot of us forget about, of going within ourselves and looking for our own counsel and what our own hearts are saying and our own intuition. What is our gut saying? What are the different voices inside us saying? And I just want to discuss that option a bit more, because I think these days people are all too ready to, especially in this age of social media, people splash their problems all over the internet, on forums and chat rooms, Facebook groups, to get input from other people. And if they don't do that, they discuss something to death with their best friend, or maybe a group of friends, or their mom or their sister, or it could even be their therapist, anyone who will listen often. And often they will discuss the same situation with dozens of different people, or a number of different people. And this is something that I've seen is very common, certainly amongst the people that I know. And it's something I used to do myself, not really knowing any better. And I just want to talk a little bit about when that can be beneficial, when it can be beneficial to discuss a problem with other people, and when it might not be so beneficial, and how to know the difference, and also how to discern who you should confide in and who you perhaps shouldn't trust with your personal information. So first of all, let's just look at a few problems that people commonly will go to other people for advice about. I would say a very common one is problems in their romantic relationship, or issues that they're having in their romantic relationship. Another common one is work issues, either not being treated fairly by the company you work for or your boss, or disagreements or conflict with co-workers. That's a common situation that people ask for advice on. It could be major decisions in your life, when if you're considering a move, or perhaps a change in career, or any major life decision. We often like to get input from a whole lot of different people. Another common situation that people go to others for advice about is if they have a goal. It might be an ambitious goal, and perhaps they want to start a new business, or they want to take up a new skill, maybe learn a difficult new skill, or they've got perhaps they want to lose weight, or they want a lifestyle change, and it's a goal that they have for themselves, and they'll often want to discuss that with other people, get their input, and it's very common to want to share with other people. Human beings are social beings. We long to connect with one another. So these impulses to discuss what's going on in our lives are very natural. Not only that, but I don't know if you guys have found this, but I certainly have. There's a great deal of societal pressure on us to share what's going on in our lives, to spill details, to talk about personal information. And as I mentioned earlier, social media has really exacerbated this. People now have the means, the ability, the desire to share everything that's going on in their lives via social media. People almost feel obligated to do so, as if other people have a right to know when something happens in your life. Overall, we live in an age of oversharing. And this has become a habit for most people. It's become a habit on the part of the person sharing the information, and a habit on the part of the person receiving the information, to the point that people feel, as I said, as if they're obligated to share all the details of their lives, and the person on the other end feels as if they have a right to that information. So you can probably relate to the situation where you catch up with a friend, maybe meet for coffee or a drink with a friend that you haven't seen in several months, or in quite a while, and immediately, they start pumping you for details about your life. And I think a lot of this is out of, a genuine concern or interest and curiosity. It's because they care, but there is an element of nosiness as well. There is an element of having sort of information as power, and people like to have not just dirt, but just information on the people around them, information that they can share with others. I know this about so and so. It's why gossip is such a common problem. It's so prevalent in our society. People have this kind of salacious need to have information about those that they know. And if you have information that you can trade with someone else, do you know what's going on with so-and-so? That is a form of social currency. So as I say, although part of it, when people ask you questions about your life, part of it is a need, is out of concern and interest, but don't kid yourself. A part of it is definitely wanting to gain social currency from you. They want to be able to feel like they're in on the details of your life, and so that they maybe know something that other people don't. And in addition to that, there is a competitiveness that most people have with each other these days. Even close friends will kind of, in their minds, compare where they are in their life to where you are in yours. And we like to feel as if we're maybe doing slightly better than other people, this is something that's common. I'm not saying every single person does it, but it's common in other people. There's a sense of keeping up with the Joneses. Are you ahead in some area of your life where they may be not doing so well? They want to know, people want to know these things. Hopefully, what I've said so far helps you to realize that not all of the motives that people have for wanting to know about your life are entirely healthy. Some of those motives actually feed into certain toxic patterns in our society, or toxic habits like gossiping, like social comparison, like a feeling of, the Germans have a word, Schadenfreude, which is where you take a little bit of pleasure when someone is going through something miserable. And none of us really like to admit to that, but it's present in many of us. So these are some of the motives that people will have when they're asking you about your life. It might not be entirely conscious, but some of it will be conscious, and you just need to be aware that this is the level on which most people are functioning. So why does that bring me to the question of whether you should consider whether or not to confide in someone about what's going on in your life? I want to put some ideas in front of you that you can use to make a decision about whether to confide, because you have the choice to just simply spill everything out to that person. It's a knee-jerk response. Someone asks you a question and you just immediately kind of vomit everything out on that person. You tell them everything to do with a particular situation. You have that option. Or you have the option to weigh whether you want to tell this person anything at all and how much. And I really encourage you to get into this practice of considering how much information to share with other people, and how you phrase that information. And here's why. You might be tempted to think, oh, well, if people have those sort of negative thoughts about the information that I'm sharing, that's their problem. And you might think that you sharing something sharing information with another person will have no effect on you, but that's not true. If you've ever experienced the negative consequences of sharing too much with a person, you'll know that that isn't true. So here are some of the possible negative consequences that can come from oversharing with somebody. The first is, as I mentioned, people can use the information that you share about your life as social currency with others. This is where gossiping comes in. So they will have coffee with you on Tuesday, and you will tell them everything that's going on with work, with your family, with your friends, with your love life. And then that same person that you've just confided in goes and has coffee with someone else on Wednesday. And say there's a lull in conversation and they're feeling awkward, they feel like they've got nothing to say. So all of a sudden they say, guess who I had coffee with yesterday? And the person they're having coffee with will say, oh, who? Oh, well, it was so-and-so. And you'll never believe what she told me. And before they know what's happened, they are spilling all these details that they just gathered from you yesterday to this third person who may or may not even know you, who may or may not have your best interests at heart, who may use that information for good or evil. They may keep it to themselves. You just don't know. But the information is out there to be traded. between people, used as conversation fodder. You need to keep this in mind. That's how you get, small town syndrome and gossip within groups. It's because people just share too readily. And like a broken down telephone, the information just gets passed from one person to another. And you never know when that information can end up in the wrong hands. So gossip is something I'm very against. I might make a separate video about gossip one day. But just bear in mind that's the first negative consequence that can happen when you share information about your life. Now, speaking about broken down telephone wires, if you ever played that game as a child where you pass the same message on through, every child in your class, and it's so interesting what the message was at the beginning, and by the time it's been passed between 15, 20 different children, by the end the message sounds completely different. And it's just the same way in real life. So you will share something with a person and you'll explain it in a way that you feel is quite clear, what you meant. That person will interpret what you've said to them in their own way. And that may not be exactly how you meant it, but they will interpret it the way they see it. And that version, their own interpretation of what you've said, is what they will then share with other people. They won't share what you originally said. They will share their own version of what you said. So before you know it, you've been misrepresented, or your situation has been misrepresented. So that's something to consider as well. Okay. The third possible negative consequence, and in fact, I wouldn't even say this is possible, I would say it's extremely likely. It's almost inevitable, in fact. And that is that when you share a situation with another person, people filter what you say to them through their own experiences, and they will immediately try to find a parallel with something that has happened in their own life so that they can relate to you. It's what human beings do. We use our own experiences to relate to others. It's how we try to empathize. But the difficulty with this is that this causes people to project. If you don't know what projection is, it's when someone takes an experience that they've had and they transfer it onto your situation as if the two are the same. Okay, so if we take an example, say for example, you are considering quitting your job as a lawyer and pursuing your passion for photography. Okay, and you're discussing this with your best friend, and you say to her, I'm sick of the field of law. I've always had this deep passion for photography, and I just feel deep within myself it's time to quit law, and I really want to, take a proper course in photography and pursue my passion. Now, say for example, your best friend had a situation earlier in her life where she did something similar. She maybe went outside of the norm. She sort of broke away from what she was doing and tried to follow her own path, and it didn't work out so well. Say she wanted to be a ballet dancer, and she tried it and she was no good at it, or it didn't work out. So she instead decided to, ended up pursuing a career that was safer, that could provide her with a stable income, and she neglected her dreams of being a ballet dancer. She will bring that experience to the conversation when you are talking about your desire to leave the world of law and pursue a career in photography. Her mind will immediately go back to that memory that she had of wanting to be a ballet dancer and it not working out. And this is going to filter through into the advice that she gives you. So she's going to encourage you to be very careful, to play it safe, to maybe reconsider your choice to leave law. You know, you don't want to be without an income. You don't want to go on a fool's errand and it all blows up and goes up in smoke and it doesn't work out. Then where will you be? These are the sorts of things she might say, because her particular experience didn't work out. She might be tempted to squash or throw cold water on your dreams. And if you are not so confident or strong in your choice to follow your passion, if you're maybe on the fence, you're not really decided about what you want to do, and this is often a reason why we go to people for advice in the first place. We can't decide what to do, so we go to people that we trust. But this is the kind of thing that can happen. A person's advice to you will be colored by their own experience, and they will have evidence to back up, you know, the advice that they're giving. Oh, look what happened when I tried to pursue my dreams. This is what happened. So, you know, they might even be quite forceful with you and say, you know, you're just being ridiculous and stupid. What do you think you're doing? You've got a great career. Why would you want to give that up? Here's another example. Romantic relationships are a big one. I'm very, very against going to your friends and family for advice on your romantic relationship. Your romantic relationships, unless you've got someone who you really, really trust to be impartial, someone who knows what they're talking about. But another example is a romantic relationship. Say you are in a relationship with a guy, say you're a woman and you've got a boyfriend, and say it's been a day or two since he's called, and this is really unusual for him. He phones every day, and you know, the whole day passes and you wonder where your phone call is. The evening comes and you get no phone call from him. The next morning you still hear nothing, and you are really, you know, you might be a bit panicky, you're anxious, you might even be worried, you think something's happened to him. Perhaps you've even tried to call him and he didn't pick up. And so in a state wanting to be comforted, you go and see your friend and say, you know, I just don't get it. He phones every day. You know, I'm really feeling anxious. He hasn't phoned today, and this morning I still haven't heard from him. And you know, what do you think I should do? I tried to call. He hasn't returned my call. Now, the likelihood is that your friend will have had a relationship in her past where a guy didn't call when she expected him to, you know, for a day or two. And so she will immediately, if she's not very self-aware, could immediately leap to, oh, well, you know what, this happened to me, and you know what it turned out to be. Eventually, I found out that he was cheating on me, and, you know, I'm not trying to scare you, but that could easily be the case with your boyfriend. And that thought of him cheating on you might never have entered your head until then. But your friend, again, has projected her own fears and experiences onto your situation. So, you know, instead of being able to look at the situation more objectively, more cool-headedly, more calmly, she's introduced a new fear for you. You're already, you know, anxious enough, not knowing what's happened. But she's taken her own fear and her own baggage and projected it on to you. So this is something, this last one, you know, other people projecting their own experiences, their own fears, their own insecurities, their own worries onto your situation, is something which is so incredibly common. It's something we don't think about enough. when we go to ask advice from someone. Because people can be really confident in the advice that they give us. Most people don't even take a few minutes to really weigh up what advice they're giving to that person. They just have the answer right there. You come to them with a situation, and they've already got all their thoughts laid out for you, and their advice, and what you should do, and what's going on. People are, as I say, they don't even often take a few minutes to really think about the situation, to ask you questions, to get more information, from you about what's happening. They just immediately will be there with the response. And that's kind of how you know that you've got a bit of a knee-jerk response from the other person. This is how you know it's coming from a more superficial place. Okay, you need to be really wary of this. And if you are going to ask for advice from other people, and I'm going to explain why I don't always think it's a good idea, a bit later on. But if you are going to ask for advice from someone else, do take into account their past, their history, their experiences, who they are as a person, and how this might influence the advice that they give you. So before you allow someone's advice to filter in to your mind and to take root in your thoughts, really try and evaluate who that person is that's giving you the advice and where they might be coming from. Okay, so the fourth negative consequence of sharing your personal details and your personal situations with other people is, I think, possibly even the most important one. If you're familiar with energy work, you'll know that it's often said people function at different vibrations. You might not like that terminology. I'm not wild about the word vibration. I like to call it energy. But people function at different levels of energy. So people who are coming from a really high place, people who are successful in their love lives, in their careers, they have successful friendships, they've got a lot of stuff figured out. They're coming from quite a high energy place. They've worked out a lot of the laws that will get you to a place of success in various areas of your life. Then you've got people, down here who are struggling. They're struggling in their jobs. They may be struggling in their relationships and their marriages. Their friendships may be full of conflict. Their jobs they're not particularly happy in their job. Their families may fight. Maybe they have money worries and they're not happy with their home. They've got lots of messy stuff going on in their lives. And our life is messy. But people who are functioning at a high energy know how to handle that mess a lot better. The majority of people are here. Okay. So with things constantly going wrong and not really knowing how to handle things in an effective way. Okay, it's just the reality. I would love to get people to a higher energy place so that they know how to handle problems and issues and, situations in life more effectively. But the reality is that most people you speak to are going to have a vibration or an energy that's somewhere here. Now, if you are wanting to move to a higher level, which is often, when we're facing a decision that's difficult or a situation that we don't quite know how to solve, it's often we're being called to a higher place, to move up a level in life. If you are asking these people for their input and their advice and their feedback, what you're going to get is advice that comes from this low energy level of people whose situations are not really working. Have you ever tried to go to, someone for advice on your relationship, your romantic relationship, for example, and this person is in a marriage that's not a marriage you'd actually want to be in, now why on earth would you want to go to them for advice? They can't get their own relationship from here to here. So, or here, why would you want to ask them for advice? They're going to tell you what works down here, but you don't want to be down there. You want to be up here. You need to go to really high vibration, high energy people, people who have figured this stuff out for advice. Okay. And this doesn't necessarily need to be a professional, a therapist or a coach, because a lot of those people don't have it figured out either. This should be someone that you choose, whom you admire, someone who you determine has it figured out. If you are going to go to someone for advice, select someone who is where you want to be, or who can teach you something to get to where you want to be. Because people who are down here feel happiest when everyone else is down here in the muck with them. They feel uncomfortable when you are here, when you are showing, it shows them up, it shows them where they are falling short in their own life. So they don't feel quite comfortable if you are succeeding in areas that they're not. I mean, a lot of people are big enough to be happy for your success, but a lot of people are not. They are going to say things that will probably encourage you to come down here where they are, because that's how they feel comfortable. You know, when there's a shift in your relationship and one of you is succeeding and one of you isn't, it's uncomfortable often for both of you. They want you to be down here with them. So this is something you have to remember. If you surround yourself with people of a low energy, people who are functioning at a low vibration, whose lives are not really working, and you are pouring out the details of your life to these people, you are most likely going to stay down here with them, because that's who you are spending all your time around. That's who you're sharing your energy with. That's where you're getting your feedback, and it's going to keep you trapped in that low vibration. So if there is an area of your life that you're struggling with, I really encourage you not to ask for advice from people who are not where you want to be. You know, they are also struggling. Even, you know, and you, this is something you need to look deeply at. If say you want advice on your romantic relationship and you go to a friend of yours who is married, you can't just say, oh, well, I want to be married and she's married, so I'll ask her for advice. No. Look at her marriage. Is it the kind of marriage you would want? And if not, if she has not created what you are actually looking for, I would